Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Guys YouTube channel where the Force is family. I am Master Paul, joined once again by Cash Money and Lord Crit. In fact, Cash, since you're the actual co-host, I'm going to swap you places.
Up to
And
you, man.
It's all right. And tonight, usually this is Movie Monday, but we had Movie Monday last night because tonight was really the only night that we could talk about this as quickly as possible. Tonight, we are going to be talking about Arcane. Now, before we go any further, I do want to give all of the credit for this stream even happening to both Mr. Crit and Cash for getting me to watch this, because I had no intention of really watching this because I am not a League of Legends player at all. I did try it a couple days ago and got bored with it, but then again, that was just the tutorial. But regardless, I didn't have any plans of watching this, but hearing how good it was from Cash and Crit, I decided to give it a shot. And basically, guys, thank you for showing this show to me.
Yeah.
No problem, man.
No problem.
So, as always, we'll start by going around and everyone gives their general thoughts. And Mr. Crit, you can go first.
Yeah. I was so Arcane is in 3 acts, and personally, I didn't expect to be so wowed by something. If there's a, I've seen a lot of animated stuff. Samurai Jack. I like anime. Usually, when it comes to animation, it's usually the old Disney films and Pixar.
Yep.
Hello. It's usually the old Disney. When it comes to great animation, it's usually the old. And Kung Fu Panda. I consider that wonderful animation.
Yeah, that
But
was beautiful.
when it comes to classic, classic animation from Disney or Pixar, that's when I consider the pinnacle of animation.
Mm-hmm.
This show, in my opinion, and I'm gonna be honest, I think this is the greatest animated thing I've ever seen, and the best. And for me, one of the things is it's not even for kids; it's for adults. And
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
I had no words watching it. I've watched it 4 times now, the fourth with you, Paul, and it is a show that begins slowly but builds upon itself, and by the end, you're like, "Wow, what did I just watch?" Oh,
Yes. That was like the most common phrase that I had at the end of a lot of these episodes. Quote, "What the heck was any of that?"
well, wasn't Punk Waddle the one we convinced to watch the other day? We said, "Give it a chance," or was
I don't know,
that another
maybe.
person?
It might have been.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Punk Waddle says Arcane is Punk Waddle approved. It drew me in and I wanted to know what happened next. Yes. Oh, and by the way, hello to Average. Thank you for joining.
Average only watched an episode. He doesn't want to watch it because it's League of Legends. It's a
Well,
pity.
Average, if that is true, I hope by the end of this stream we will have changed your mind. But if not, that is perfectly
It's
okay.
okay.
Also,
I agree.
It's okay. Yeah.
So, Cash,
you need your binky.
your turn.
Yeah, it started off slow. I didn't like Powder, but as few I would, after at least 3 episodes, I was like, okay, I'm starting to like this show better, and let's actually see where this goes. And once Jinx came into the picture, I was like, okay, I'm completely on board. She's nuts. She's kind of like a Harley Quinn type character, probably a little bit different, but she is crazy. And how she feels about her sister Vi. And then all what was going on where you've got the whole rich city. And then underground, you have this whole everybody's on drugs and they're doing this crazy. They're on this like goo, looked kind of like something out of like Turtles, but it looked interesting. I forgot what it was called. But everybody had their own agenda, and you didn't know exactly what was going to happen next. Though I did feel, and I love that art style. So overall, I'd give this show an 8 out of 10. It
Yeah.
it took me a while, at least a few episodes, but once there was choices that mattered and characters and the love interests and everybody was very interesting, and you didn't. It was hard to really hate a character. Like you started understanding how they feel about the situations that they were going through. If it was
Yes.
how about their sister or about somebody, one of them had cancer or whatever. With those kind of situations, Silco, even after he killed Victor, his brother, it was like, man, it's rough. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Vander.
yeah. Is it
You got,
Vander? Oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't
got
Victor.
confused?
Victor's the other one. Sorry. Yes, yes. Vander's the brother. Right. Okay. Got it.
So, yes.
Oh, I didn't give my rating. I'm gonna say this is probably one of the few. I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10. I just feel it deserves
Wow.
it. It's a 10 out of
Okay.
10. It's a masterpiece.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
My rating and my overall thoughts on the show before we get into the recap is I'm giving it also an 8 out of 10. And this would be a 10 out of 10 had they, well, we'll talk about that part later. I've devoted an entire section to just that.
Mhm.
But anyways, I want to go back to this comment that Punkwaddle said where he says it drew me in and I wanted to know what happened next. Now, I do apologize. I know you guys are tired of talking about this, but I'm sorry. I have to. This is what Book of Boba Fett should have done with its story. Draw you in, make you care about the characters, and leave you with a sense of what happened next. Just like also freaking Cobra Kai.
Yes. Agreed.
But we don't have to dwell on that point too much. So Punkwaddle also says it's the slums sort of place, and it's more of a poor versus rich
Mhm.
and proper.
Yep.
So all of that said, let's get in now to the story. And this is not going to be an episode by episode recap like we usually do with any TV show we talk about. We're instead going to do this like we've done with Cobra Kai, where we're just going to hit on the major points of the story as a whole throughout the whole series. So the series opens on this city that is on fire. There's some sort of big battle going on in this city, and it takes place specifically on this bridge that's burning. And these two kids that Mr. Crit has pulled up here, their names are Vi or Violet, that's the one on the left, and Powder, the one on the right. And they are completely scared and overwhelmed by all the chaos around them. And off to their right, they see this giant of a man beating the absolute pulp out of someone, but he sees them, sees how scared they are, and takes pity on them, and basically takes them in as his own daughters. And this guy's name is Vander. Now, question before we go any further. I got the sense that the guys that Vander was beating the ever-loving tar out of was Vi and Powder's real parents. Is that actually the case?
I think it was the enforcers, because the enforcers killed the parents that were part of the. I think the battle was they were uprising against the enforcers, and the enforcers basically came over the bridge and they had a battle, but it was a losing battle. It was.
Okay. And by the way, the guy in the picture here, this is Vander. So he is sort of the father figure in the very beginning of the show when Vi and Powder are kids. So everything flashes forward a couple years, and Vi and Powder now live with Vander. Vander runs the bar of the Undercity, which is known as Zon, with the upper city known as Piltover. And Vander, he runs the bar, but he's sort of the de facto mayor of the underground, which looks like this, by the way. And I'm going to pop everyone out just for a second because I deleted the picture in my overlay. But just to show what the bar looks like, this is what it looks like. So that is the place that Vander runs. Now, during their free time, Vi and Powder and their two friends, two boys named Milo and Clagger, they will sometimes go out and go to the upper city and steal things from the rich. I'm guessing to sell down below and make some money. Well, they go into this one house, and by the way, the scenes of them jumping from building to building is pretty cool, and they establish right away that Powder, the littlest of the four kids, is having the most trouble with keeping up with her older comrades. So this brings up a bit of contention between Milo and Vi, where Milo's like, do we have to bring her along every single time? And Vi's like, lay off, this is my sister. And they break into this one apartment, and it's clearly the apartment of someone that is an inventor. And so they're grabbing just all the stuff that they can, and we see this. Powder comes across this blue crystal. And everyone is amazed by it. They don't know what it is. But before they can really take a guess what it is, in comes someone trying to get in. And this causes them to freak out. And I forget exactly how this happens. You'll have to remind me.
So when they freak out, she accidentally drops the case of the hex cubes or whatever, and they kind of react and explode, destroying half of the block.
Yes, and this also alerts the police, or as they're called in this show, the enforcers, to their presence. So the kids have to hightail it out of there, and they manage to evade the police, but then they come across some street gang that wants the treasure that they have. And so a big fight breaks out in which Powder escapes with the treasure, but in order not to get caught, she has to throw it in the water. So their trip ends up ultimately being for nothing. So they make it back to Vander and the last drop, the bar where he works, and Vander has a private talk with Vi saying, you can't be running off crazy like this because you've got to take care of the family when I'm not here, especially your little sister. And then there's also a private talk that Vander has with Milo, where Milo's really venting his frustrations with the fact that Powder messed up, or as he says it, jinxed another mission. And by the way, hello to Phil McCracken, and no, X-Wing does not suck. And buy the t-shirt, guys. Buy the t-shirt. So, what Milo and Vi don't know is that Powder overheard the conversation that the two of them were having when Milo is calling Powder a jinx. And again, this may be me mishearing this, but Vi wasn't doing the best job of defending Powder, was she?
No.
And so Powder sort of takes this to heart. Meanwhile, though, there is this one guy in an old, I'm guessing, cannery by the name of Silco, who wants to take over the underground. And he's working on this purple stuff. By the way, Phil says, your like has been smashed. Sorry, can't stay. Have a good stream, guys. Well, thank you for doing that, Phil. And everyone else, follow Phil's example and hit that like button.
Yeah, hit the like button.
Yes. So Silco is working with this one scientist. Remind me what his name was, Crit?
Dr. Singh.
Yeah, Dr. Singh. And they're working on this purple liquid. And how do they test this purple liquid? Well, they start by, sternly admonishing the guy who beat up Vi and the gang and saying, don't let this happen again. Then they pick up this cat and put it into the cage with a rat. Now, the way that they frame this shot is they think that they're putting in the cat to eat the rat. Like he says, feeding time, and he just plops him in. But what actually happens is the rat is fed this purple stuff, and we see it from the rat's perspective, where the rat starts to mutate into something much, much larger and scarier, but we don't see what it is because we're looking through the rat's eyes, and it's the rat that eats the cat. Yep, that's exactly what we're seeing right here.
The rat ate the cat. It's like a Dr. Seuss.
Exactly. So, throughout the rest of the episodes, we find out that this purple stuff is a substance called Shimmer. And it's pretty much the same thing as Venom from the DC universe, the stuff that Bane uses and has that tube in the back of his head to get pumped in to make him stronger. And it's... Now, help me out with this. Why at first did Silco want to develop this stuff? Was it to take over the underground, or was it to raise up an army to take over the surface?
To help him, but then again, it's not just like a Titan. It's actually a drug that people can get addictive. It's like a adrenaline type of thing. I think it was to help him basically gain control or battle Vander, as I should say, because he's pretty much dead set on revenge against Vander.
Yes, because of things that we'll find out later on in the third of the episodes. So like Crit said earlier, this is a 3-act show. Episodes 1 through 3 are Act 1, episodes 4 through 6 are Act 2, and then episodes 7 through 9 are Act 3 in the end. So, while all of this is going on up on the surface, number one, the police sheriff who knows Vander is getting kind of upset with him, saying, look, we know that your kids were involved in this, and someone has to take the fall for this burglary. So either you turn them over, or you turn yourself over. But she doesn't outright say it. She kind of implies it and basically says, take some time to think about what's going on, and I will hear from you. And by the way, attention everyone, Admiral on deck.
Hey, what's up,
Nerd
dude?
Poriel, if you got Netflix, you should just start watching right away.
Yes. It's 9 episodes, 1 season. A day or two, you'll have it finished.
Yep. 1, 2, 3. Treat it like a movie. Treat each block of 3 as a movie, basically.
Yeah. And I'll say this too before we go any further. If anyone is watching this that has not seen it and also has not played League of Legends, you do not need to have played League of Legends to understand this show. Because like I said, I haven't, and I was able to follow this okay, which is more than I can say, by the way, for the Warcraft movie.
The Warcraft movie, don't remind me.
Yeah, that was not fun. Nurporial says, can't stay. I will check it out whenever I revive my Netflix. And Punkwaddle says, we were just talking about Arcane in the Discord, so this was a very timely review, Master Paul. Well, thank you very much.
Nice.
And whoever you were talking about this with, man, get them in here. And yeah, this is all based off a game called League of Legends, and you guys know a little bit more about that game than I do, but apparently it's one of those super pop.
I know zilch about League of Legends, other than what's in Arcane, so...
Yeah. Well, according to what I know about it, it's literally just another one of those super famous MMORPGs, and the community apparently is extremely, extremely toxic. So now we move on to episode 2. I guess this kind of is a episode by episode remake or recap unintentionally. And episode 2 is mostly about this guy. Now, this guy is an inventor. He was the guy that had his apartment broken into in episode 1. And I'm blanking out on his name right now.
It's Jace. Tell us.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, his name is Jace. And he is someone that is an inventor, and he has a really cool introduction to his character, where he and his mom were from a different part of the world, and they were in trouble, so they were brought to Piltover by way of magic. And this guy has been ever since trying to find a way to harness magic with science and technology. And that is actually the point of what those little blue balls were for. Those were basically balls of magic that he was trying to get focused into using with technology, something that he would ultimately come to call hex tech. However, the council that he answers to, that's part of the academy, actually, let me rephrase that. The Academy of Science, or whatever it is that he works for, has very strict laws on what sort of experiments they allow and will not allow, and his dabbling in magic apparently fell well outside of those boundaries of what's acceptable. And by the way, hello to the Underground.
Yo, man.
By the way, I think this is my first time seeing you here in the chat, Underground, so if that is the case, welcome. And yes, that is what it's called, Hex Tech. Now, this guy right here that you see is an old guy by the name of Heimerdinger. And you could almost consider him the Yoda of the show. Would you say that's a good comparison?
Yes.
So he's really old. He was pretty much there when Piltover was founded, and he had seen where basically magic fell into the wrong hands and the consequences that came from that. So because it was found out that he was trying to dabble in magic, Jace basically got arrested and was going to stand trial for basically going outside of their code of ethics. So the trial happens, and Jace is told by Heimerdinger, who is on the council, don't say anything about magic, just accept what you did was wrong, and you'll get out of here with a slap on the wrist, which is exactly what Jace does not do. He basically tries to use that moment to make his point that, no, I can make this work, and this will be good for people, but the council doesn't believe him. And he's extremely lucky that he isn't let out of there in chains. Instead, he's allowed to go back home, but he is never allowed to work on his experiments again, and he is barred from Academy property. And this is only after someone else on the council who knows him personally basically gives him a character witness, saying, look, yeah, what he did was wrong, but he's really not that bad of a guy.
No, that was his mother that pleaded.
I thought that was someone else. I thought his mom was someone else. That this was just someone that was helping him through school.
No. Heimerdinger was his teacher. His mother pleaded for him to pleaded to the council to just have him go home.
That's right. I was getting his mom confused with Caitlin's mom.
No, Caitlin's mom, Mrs. Kierman, she's part of the council.
Yes,
she's a noble.
And she said that up to this point, her and her family had been Jace's benefactor. I think that was the word.
Yeah.
So, anyways, after this, Mrs. Kierman wants nothing further to do with Jace. Jace is obviously depressed because he can't continue his work. And this leads him to go back to his apartment, to the hole in the wall that got blasted out in the explosion. And outside that hole is a very steep drop down to the streets. And he's almost about to take a step off that ledge when he is stopped by someone, that up to this point had been working as Heimerdinger's assistant, a guy by the name of Victor. Now, Victor is a guy that is crippled, and we don't know it yet at this point in the show, but he also has a deadly illness. Do they say for sure what it is that's killing him in the show?
I don't. I would assume it's just one of those diseases. Like, Tiny Tim had that disease too in A Christmas Carol. It's just one of those diseases.
Well, if I was to make a guess, I would say, because one of the symptoms that he shows is that he's coughing up blood. So, not being a doctor, if I was to take a guess, I would say it was tuberculosis that he had.
Yeah, I would assume that. Oh no!
So this is Victor, and he sees potential in Jace's experiments and decides to team up with him to be his partner and continue their work. But in order to do that, they have to break in to the academy and get back the stuff that's locked up in Heimerdinger's workshop. So they do this, and one of the council members, I'm probably going to butcher her name. I think her name is Maderde.
Is
that right?
Melandra, I think it's Mel. Or Mel. Jace calls her Mel.
Let me look it up.
Yeah. Right.
Mel Medarda. That's what it is. So she catches them in the middle of the night, but decides not to turn them in. And basically, she says, "You have the rest of the night to prove that this works. Otherwise, you're both in big, big trouble." Basically, if they don't get this right, they're going to be banished from Piltover. But they manage to get it right, and they present their case, and soon Hextech is further developed. So that's pretty much their story in the past. And while all of this is going on, the story is being further developed with Powder and Vi, where it's very clear that Milo still does not like Powder very much as far as, her coming along on the missions. Clagger's just admittedly kind of there. I didn't see really what the point of him was other than to die later.
He's just part. No, they were just part of Vander's adopted kids, the kids he found.
Okay.
They weren't friends. They were family in retrospect.
Okay, fair enough. And we also meet another little boy who is adopted by the main shopkeeper of Zaun, a man by the name of Echo. And he's very good close friends with Vander and his family. And he is eavesdropping when Vander meets with the sheriff and her assistant, a guy that's really slimy by the name of... Find it. I can't find it. I want to say it's Grayson. No. That's the sheriff. Do you remember what this guy's name was?
Which one was it? The guy with the he was Asian.
And he has the mustache, and he works with Silco.
I think his name was I'm thinking Martin, or I might be wrong.
Cash, do you remember?
No,
not sure.
Hold on. I'll do it real quick. What was his name?
Okay.
He was. He was
It's not
Okay,
the guy with the cane, Punkwaddle. That's Victor, who we have pictured right
Marcus.
here.
it was
Marcus.
Marcus. Right.
Okay.
Marcus.
So yeah, Grayson is the sheriff, the lady, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have our names straight still. Good. So the two of them come in to question, Vander, and this is where they come up with the plan. And Echo eavesdrops on this and tells Vi and her family. And they're wondering, what's going to happen. So eventually time goes on and we see some shots of the kids hanging out. We see Vi training on this boxing robot, which is going to be important later because pretty much boxing is Vi's main preferred method of fighting. Meanwhile, we also are introduced to Caitlin, who that is not who's pictured here. This is the sheriff, Grayson, I believe her name is.
Yep.
Caitlin is Jace's best friend. And she is part of the Enforcers, but she's one of the more lower ranked Enforcers. And she is not happy with the fact, well, her parents really aren't happy with the fact that she became an Enforcer because they thought that she was capable of more.
Get below her, yeah.
Yes.
That's why all the other enforcers make fun of her. The other
Exactly, because
police.
she's the quote-unquote rich kid. Now, we see a flashback of both Grayson and Caitlin at the rifle range. And they're running some sort of competition course, which Caitlin wins. But she also notices that Grayson hesitates a little bit in one of her shots, kind of in a sense letting Caitlin win. And Caitlin sort of questions her on this. And I'm kind of unclear as to what the answer was. Did the sheriff let Caitlin win? And if so, why?
I don't know. Did I think she didn't. She said she didn't let her win.
She said she was just better, but she pretty much felt, I think, that she proved herself, that Caitlin proved herself.
Right.
And so
now let's get to where the story really takes a turn. So Vander decides ultimately that for the betterment of his kids, he's going to turn himself in to the Enforcers and go to jail. But before that can happen, because Vander's in handcuffs, but before that can happen, along comes the guy that was beating up the other kids in episode 1, but he is much, much different now. He is all amped up on Shimmer, which has made him literally into a monster. And he thrashes everyone. He kills the shopkeeper. He kills the sheriff, leaving Marcus to escape. And he beats Vander, who is no small guy, to within an inch of his life, and takes him away to Silco, who ultimately wants revenge because, as we find out, Silco and Vander are like brothers. Okay, hold on. Are they actually brothers, or is it just a brother-like friendship?
I think they are brothers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where the two of them were fighting once, and I don't know exactly where they were, but wherever they were waist deep in the water. And something happens where Vander is trying to drown Silco. But basically at that point, well, okay. I'm sorry I keep blanking out on this, basically what happens in this fight. Something happens to cause his eye to get screwed up.
He's basically blacking out, and he's basically blacking out in the filthy water, but he reaches for his knife in the side pocket and basically slashes at Vander, and he's able to get out. I think his eye was gone by then, if I'm not mistaken.
It's possible. Also, throughout the whole show, they show him poking some sort of needle into his eye that I was unclear of why that was needed.
I think that's Shimmer. I think that's just a drug, a small dose of.
Okay.
For his like headaches or whatever.
Okay, fair enough. So, anyways, this, by the way, is Silco, the guy on the left, and it's his other eye that's messed up, so you can't see it in this shot. But the kids find out what happened to Vander, and so they decide to go rescue him. However, Vi tells Powder to stay behind because she doesn't want anything to happen to her. But Powder isn't having this. And when Vi and Milo and Clacker leave to go and save Vander, Powder has a meltdown. And even though this meltdown seemingly comes out of nowhere, this is important because it teases who Powder is going to become. So after her little meltdown, Powder decides to go along anyway with some of the contraptions that she had built, because she really likes making these little animatronic devices that are explosive. And so she takes one of the little hex gems that she had stolen, and she loads one into a bomb and uses that to try and go and save Vander along with everyone. Let's see. The Underground says the water in Zon is toxic, which is probably why his eye is messed up. It also may be why Victor is sick. I could see that. In fact, don't they say that later on in the series, that it was because of Victor growing up in the underground and being exposed to whatever toxins are down there? That's why he's sick?
Yeah, but they showed him he wasn't very good as a kid. In good health.
Right. He was always crippled, but as an adult he's also crippled and dying, as we'll get into later. So, the rescue mission, Vi and the kids, they managed to get Vander somewhat untied, but they're found out by both Silco and someone that used to support Vander, but saw him as going soft, and so sided with Silco, a woman by the name of Savika. And she and Silco and his goons that are on Shimmer get into a fight with Vi, who is now using basically these two metal things on her fists that Vander once used way back in the very beginning of the first episode as he was beating up those enforcers. And she's holding her own, okay, but eventually she gets overpowered. And right about then, because Vander tries to get involved, but he is no match for those monsters that are on Shimmer, and he gets knocked over the side after, again, being beat within an inch of his life. In fact, I believe he was mortally wounded at this point. But he lands on a shipment of Shimmer and decides to use it himself, and becomes even more of a monster of a man than he was before, which was kind of impressive. However, Powder comes in, uses that Hex-Tech bomb that she had made, and blows up the entire building, killing Milo and Clagger in the process, and also kind of killing Vander in the process too. And Savika and Silco get away. Although, and you guys had to tell me about this because I missed it at first, Savika ends up losing her left arm. By the way, this is what Vander turns into after using Shimmer. So, you see Vi is crying over the body of Vander. And along comes Powder, unaware of the fact that Vander is dead, and she's happy that something she made finally worked. But then she sees the body of Vander there, and Vi is absolutely beside herself, especially with the knowledge that all of this was pretty much Powder's fault. And Vi punches her in the face and says that Milo was right, you are a jinx. And she leaves. And then we get this absolutely raw emotional scene here where
basically
Powder,
disavows her.
yeah, Powder is losing her ever-loving mind over the fact that she's being abandoned by, at this point, the only family she has left that's actually blood related to her. And so she's there just screaming and crying in the alleyway. And along comes Silco, who basically sees himself in her. And he wraps his arms around her and tells her it's going to be okay. Everyone's going to pay. And then we also see, and then he also asks, was that your sister leaving you? And then the turn happens when Powder says, she's not my sister anymore. And her eyes go slightly purple because she turns at this point into Jinx. She takes the name that she was insulted with and use it literally as her supervillain name.
It builds upon itself. It rhymes. It's like poetry. I'm sorry I have to use the Lucas quote, but
no, it's good.
Know. It's like this show, if it reminds me of any other, if we're going to compare it to Star Wars, this is exactly like Revenge of the Sith in some aspects.
Yes, it is. So that's pretty much the end of Act 1. So before we go any further, what do you guys think of just this portion of the story that we just talked about?
It's a good setup. I think the ending just makes up for all the issues. Again, like you could see the Oliver Twist inspirations, and the second episode and third focuses on Jace's aspirations. That Jace wasn't really, it's more of an introduction to Jace and how he becomes how he is in the later on. But yeah, this is just a building for everyone. But that ending, I have to say, this is probably one of the most unexpected endings I've ever seen in a story. This is how you subvert expectations. This is, if you went in this blind, you would think this is a children's cartoon in the first episode, in the first 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And it's not at all.
It's not. This was for me one of the most heart-wrenching scenes I'd seen in a long time.
Yes.
It's such a shocker, and I just gotta give it praise. It just for all those issues of I had for some, I just felt like that scene made up for it. And yeah, it's a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
I think maybe a 10 out of 10. I just think that ending magnifique, as you say.
Yes. Cash, your thoughts on Act 1 of the story?
Yeah, the last episode, it was like when Crit and I were watching this, I said, well, I'm going to stick with this and see what happens. But I just didn't like the whole Oliver Twist gang for a while. I just didn't care about them. And Vander was interesting, and so was Silco, but I didn't like Powder. it was only till what's going to happen next as I started respecting Powder more. I just didn't Powder. I found very annoying. Maybe that was the point, but I wanted, when I saw that ending, I'm like, well, let's just see where this goes, and then things started being like, okay, I'm definitely on board with this show.
Yes.
For me, this is a good look at. I know we're deep diving it.
No, this is fun.
We wanted to keep it simple, but we're yeah, I guess. If you go back and rewatch 1, 2, 3, you could tell that Powder, I think she has mental issues, or
Oh yeah.
I think it's anxiety or attachment.
Mm-hmm.
There, but you can see the signs in there. The thing is that in this world, people don't see those signs. They don't see those signs so easily. So instead, just you got Milo, and funny enough, when we get in Act 2 and 3, Milo sticks with Jinx the most in her mind, because Milo was the one that pretty much knocked on her the most. Pretty much said she was useless, and pretty much just never live. The voices in her head will never leave.
Right. And what you said about how there were signs in her childhood that Powder had mental issues, you're not the only one that noticed that. Because I was doing some prep work before this stream happened, trying to find images to use in the stream, which thankfully you are doing a very good job of that, Mr. Critz. And I came across this Reddit thread that someone made apparently after only the first 3 episodes had come out. And I'm going to just share this with you before we move on to the second act. It says, a theory regarding Powder's deteriorating emotional state. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically this guy says that the episodes hint at something deeper at play than she was just a kid who accidentally caused a lot of problems, leading to a lot of her loved ones dying, causing a mental breakdown, leading her to emotionally snap. Now, if that's all it was, fair enough. That's still an interesting story. But there could be something else. Noting that Jinx's eye color as a kid are hazel, and yet they're blue when she's older and pink in the game. And basically making a connection that he thinks between Jinx and arcane crystals. And then he also brings up Professor Heimerdinger's warning of using arcane magic and the outburst at being left behind in episode 3, which again, which as he says here was really sudden and unnatural at first. And then you have the whole stability versus instability thing that he goes on to read. And then he mentions something called crack theory, and I'm going to read this one. Now we have 2 narratives playing alongside each other. Jason Victor trying to stabilize the crystal, while Powder is becoming emotionally unstable around the crystals. The way the scene is shot, even with the sound, it has a strange tone to it. The sound is fragmented, almost ghost-like. Are we seeing Powder becoming so emotionally unstable because of the events happening around her? Or is it because the crystals are somehow affecting her state of mind? This one is just something that has been on my mind a bit. It's a bit of a long shot, but I do wonder. Since I know there is a character I won't mention because of spoilers, that we can see the energy from the crystals literally change space and time with Jason Victor. It breaks a window, then the energy reverses it. The scene where Powder is seeing everyone get beaten up and it's slowed down. Then we have the scene of her falling after the blast. It's because of her emotional state of mind and just slowed down for the audience's sake, or because she is holding the crystals and she is seeing time slowed down.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting theory.
And I'll put this full Reddit thread in the chat here. in case you guys want to read the full thing on your own time. So here it is here. So with that, let's move on to Act 2. So I believe it's 5 years.
Seven.
Hold on a second. Let's bring this up. Underground says she did see her parents die in front of her, and that alone could make her crazy.
I think maybe she had mental. She was. I think she just maybe had like a disability. For me, I think she had sort of a social disability or anxiety when it came to and
like attachment issues.
Yes, that I think she had that, and she couldn't take no for an answer.
Okay.
And then it didn't help that Milo was knocking down on her all the time, and basically she thought she could accomplish something if she tried to help. It was just, again, this is just factors that build up to an outcome.
Right. So the first act, like we said before, is the setup, and it does a amazing job of being that setup. So now we get into Act 2, which takes place 7 years later. Jace has now become the foremost inventor of the entire city, thanks to his inventions with what he calls now Hex Tech, using those little arcane stones and turning them into various tools, as we see here with his biggest one, the Hex Gates, which allowed for much faster and easier travel between the different countries, thus opening up more opportunities for trade, with Piltover being the seat of that trade and arguably profiting the most. Meanwhile, Silco, because Vander by now is dead, has completely taken over the underground and has turned it into pretty much a hellscape. Everyone down there is addicted on drugs to some degree, and you see a whole bunch of weird body modifications that people are doing, and it's not pretty. Now, up on the surface, they're celebrating their yearly Progress Day, I believe it's called, right?
Yeah.
And because Jace has pretty much single-handedly, well, with the help of Victor, brought Piltover into a new age of innovation and commerce, he is chosen to give the big speech. And one of the things that he wanted to reveal... Oh, by the way, we got a VIP in the chat here. Mexican Iron Man says, Arcane was great overall. My recommendation, please watch as much anime as possible, like 4 to 6 hours per day, and do not spend any time playing with your lightsabers.
Oh my gosh, dude! Mexican Iron Man, when you get a chance, dude, check your messages on Discord, dude. I thought I'd say, hey, we haven't. I noticed you've been in X-Wing's channel recently, and so just hope you're doing well, man. If you even remember me, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
That's all right. So yeah, if Mexican Iron Man likes something, then you can take that to the bank that it's really good. So anyways, getting back to what I was talking about, Jace was going to reveal a new evolution in Hex Tech. Basically, he had taken one of the stones and refined it into this perfect little ball that he was going to be able to put in different tools. Like we see him put it into a giant hammer or into a giant pair of boxing gloves. And, oh, by the way, Cash, this is for you. But after some talking with Heimerdinger about it, who says, you know what, maybe in 60 or so years, this technology might be okay. At first he's like, no, we want to unveil this now. We think it's ready. But Heimerdinger, who at least the characters in the show claim is somewhat stuck in the past because he's so old. You know, he's going to always err on the side of caution. And he, you know, we know that he was never really for the invention of hex tech to begin with. So, of course, he's going to caution them, you know what, take this slow, do your research, and then unveil it when it's beyond ready. And Jace takes this to heart, and when it comes time for him to give his big speech, he chickens out and just gives the speech, which people still like, but they're also kind of disappointed because he teased that something was going to happen, but it didn't. And Victor's kind of put off by this too, but understands his reasoning. However, while the Progress Day stuff is going on, there is this raid going on one of the airships where Savika and her crew, including Jinx, are trying to smuggle in Shimmer. And this, by the way, is where we see Jinx in her Harley Quinn knockoff form.
I think she's better than Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
debatable. Debatable.
Yeah, each, you know, we each like different things. But anyways, I'm
sorry, I'm simping for this show too much.
It's all right, man.
Why?
So, however, the mission goes wrong because basically, number one, this one team called the Firelights intervene that are trying to stop Silco and his band at all costs, although we don't know who any of them are yet. And so there's this big clash where Jinx comes face to face with someone that she thinks looks like Vi. Like she has the pink hair and all that, but it's clearly her insanity kicking in because it's not Vi. But this causes her to lose control, and this makes Savika mad. So even still, as an adult working for Silco, she's still being a Jinx, and something always goes wrong with her missions. And Savika points this out to Silco, but Silco just kind of brushes it aside, saying, look, I can get her under control. I know her. So anyways, after this, Jinx feels like she needs to prove herself even more. So she starts a diversion by setting a certain tent to blow up with some enforcers going in there. But it's all a distraction because what she's really after is the little hex gem, the refined one that Jace and Victor had built. So with this, pretty much Jace declares war on the underground because he wants his invention back. But at the same time, he's still continuing with what he has. And then from there, the story kind of develops in different areas with Jinx further working with Silco. Caitlin decides to take on this case herself because the sheriff's doing nothing because, as we know, he is bought out by Silco. And this leads to her busting a more grown-up Vi out of jail. And also at the same time, Jace and Victor are continuing their work, and they create something called a hex core, which is literally a hex sphere, or whatever that is, the gem, surrounded by a bunch of different panels that have runes on them that they're trying to figure out how it works. Which, by the way, this is what Vi looks like grown up.
You got the tomboyish look.
Yes.
She's one of the few people I can say the red hair looks good on. So
agreed. but at the same time,
she's got the haircut.
And I'll say this: as far as ladies that have that side shaved haircut, she pulls it off the best out of any that I've seen. It's just not my cup of tea. So, anyways. Yes.
At least the show has an excuse because there's different hair colors with people.
Right.
Caitlin has blue.
We're also finding out that Vi was actually beaten in prison as well.
Yes. That is a face only a mother could love right there. Okay, so getting back on track. While all of this is going on, Jace and Victor create the Hex Core, and they try to show Heimerdinger, but Heimerdinger says, no, you need to stop this right now. You're going too far. And Jace strongly disagrees with this. So a council meeting is convened, and basically Jace forces the council to vote on forcing Heimerdinger into retirement, and unfortunately for Heimerdinger, the vote is a unanimous yes.
Don't
Although-
forget, Paul. At this time, Jace is being manipulated by Mel to pursue basically the council's best interest, and she's actually fallen in love with him while she's doing that.
Yes, we do even they do even show a scene of the two of them sleeping together while Victor is alone, continuing to work on developing the hex tech further.
You could say Jace was living and basically Victor was killing himself in that that scene.
Like, it was also a good way of showing that Jace is forgetting his original vision of basically making hex tech for the betterment of everyone's lives instead of just lining the pockets of the council. But Victor never forgot that because of how he grew up, which we actually see in the beginning of one of the episodes, where as a boy, Victor, who was even crippled back then, made this little toy motorized boat that was floating down the stream, and it goes into a manhole. He chases it and comes across Dr. Singh and this weird giant salamander thing that he had created that was feeling sick. And Dr. Singh explained that it was a mutated lizard that he was trying to keep alive, and Victor volunteered to help. However, much later, he goes to help him and finds that the lizard is getting pumped full of shimmer and it's dying. So yeah, this is what the lizard looks like at full health, if you can see that. And then later on, it's a much darker color. You can see purple coursing through its veins, and it just looks like it's in a pitiful state. But of course, Dr. Singh is justifying it by saying this is basically the price you pay as a man of science in order to keep your experiments going. So that causes Victor to cut ties with Dr. Singh for the longest time, until he realizes that Jace is enjoying his power on the council a little too much, and so he goes back to Dr. Singh to sort of resume what they started. And of course, while that is going on, we learn more about Jinx and just how crazy she is. So she has this little layer set up that's like I'm not sure how to describe this place. It's clearly above something, but at the same time, it feels like it's below something.
I think it's like a giant plane with the motor or a boat.
Right. It's some big turbine that she has her workstation on. And we get more of a taste of just how crazy she is, because they do this in multiple ways. They show that she has made these effigies of Milo and Clagger as, I guess, representations of her friends, as being the only friends that she has left after Violet abandoned her. But at the same time, what they do in the animation style to show her being crazy is they'll just show random scribbled graffiti all over the screen, and they'll show like the ghost of Milo standing at her back. They'll show random evil faces over whoever she's looking at. And just another great example of how good this animation is. Like this is what her layer looks like.
I think that's another reason why Silker loved her so much, because he let her draw everywhere. She even drew on his ashtray.
Exactly.
In
like this style of graffiti she would leave everywhere, including at her crime scenes. And yes, she is still making explosives that look like little mouses and having them all done up in graffiti also.
And she was listening to, when that rock song she was listening to, that's actually her theme song from the video games. The rock song she was jamming to.
Really?
Yeah, that's her main theme. You're jinxed. And that was the music from the games. So that was interesting. But yeah, she's crazy.
That is interesting.
She's good crazy though.
Yes. So yeah, and like I said, I can't say this enough. Clearly inspired by Harley Quinn, with Silco, I guess, being Mr. J, but instead of a lover relationship, it is more of a father-daughter relationship.
Yes.
So then we get to a big scene in episode 5, where by this point, Caitlin and Vi have teamed up to investigate Silco in the underground, and they get into a fight with Savika, who is revealed now to have a bionic left arm that pumps shimmer into her. And she gets into a fight with Vi and mortally wounds her. Like, her fingers are really sharp, and she just shoves it right into her torso, and she is very badly hurt. So they have to go even deeper into the underground, where basically the really hardcore addicts live, and they go to this one doctor that gives her a potion mixed with shimmer to heal her. It's also here that Jinx finds out that Silco lied to Jinx, saying that her sister was gone. And she does this in a really, really funny way, where she beats up Savika. I thought she was dead in this scene, but Savika's hanging from the ceiling with all that graffiti done up all over her and the words liar all over her. Meanwhile, we get a scene where Silco finds out where Caitlin and Vi are, and they get into a fight with some of their shimmer guards, we'll say. And Jinx sees this. Now, much earlier on in the show, when Jinx was still Little Powder, Vi had given her this weird blue beacon, basically saying, light this, and no matter where you are, I will find you. And so she lights it. And by the way, this is what I meant earlier when they say that sometimes they'll show the ghost of Milo behind her. And this is honestly one of the less creepy examples. So she lights the beacon, and eventually Vi does see the beacon and makes her way back to Powder, and the two are reunited. But it's clear that even though the two sisters are reunited, Jinx is still crazy. And she sees Caitlin, and she had heard rumors that Vi was out running around with some enforcer. And so this causes her craziness to really start kicking in. And part of her craziness is that she's talking to people that aren't there, being Milo and Clagger. So at this point, we see... Actually, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself here, because there's also this scene where remind me, does this come before or after when the sisters reunite? When Jinx goes through that weird baptism?
That was before.
Okay, so let's
Yeah,
talk
it
about
was.
that for a moment. So Silco takes Jinx to the very same place where he fought Vander the first time when the two really fell out. And basically the whole point of this is Silco saying, you need to let Powder die and just fully embrace Jinx. And then we get basically Silco dunking Jinx into the water, the same as Vander did to him. And admittedly, some of the imagery and the symbolism here, we talked about this when we watched it. As a Christian, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I thought it looked a little bit too much like a baptism for my tastes. But at the same time, you know, I've seen worse poking fun at Christianity, so it's whatever. So, getting back to the present, Vi and Jinx are separated again because Jinx's craziness gets the better of her. And Vi and Caitlyn get back to the surface, where they decide to plead their case to the council and say, don't go to war with them. Instead, Silco is your main enemy. You need to worry about taking him out. And that's pretty much the end of Act 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get into Act 3, what's your thoughts on that, guys? And Cash, you can go first this time.
I just like Jinx is like one of my favorite characters, or became one of my favorite characters in this show. So finding out more about how crazy Jinx is and how Vi feels about Jinx still, and the whole relationship with Caitlyn and Vi, that they're going out and trying to figure things out, and they know there's a lot of corruption, that they're trying to fix things or figure out problems. Like, I enjoyed that. I did, but I just like finding out more about Jinx, this whole Silco Jinx relationship, like you said, the father and daughter relationship. But Silco is always manipulating people too, and
Yes.
I always saw that. Always, he was definitely always doing that. So. But yeah, Act 2 was just better than Act 1 in my opinion, and just Jinx is just nuts.
I thought the best animated sequence was that love scene in episode 5. I thought that was like a masterpiece of animation. I mean, this whole show is a masterpiece of animation, but that show in particular, if you want to show someone that's interested in animation, you gotta show them that, especially adult animation.
Yes. So my thoughts on Act 2, it definitely took what Act 1 started and continued it in a very good way. The transition from Powder to Jinx, I thought, was done very well, but at the same time showing that even though Jinx, at this point in the show, is still very crazy, it still shows that Powder is still deep within her, and with the right conditions still comes out. Like, for example, when she sees that Vi is still alive and wants to reunite with her. But at the same time, it's thrown aside when she realizes Vi is with Caitlyn.
Again, it's building upon itself. I think every episode just builds upon the previous one. You don't this is good storytelling, how you should make a narrative, in my opinion. Because if you tie things together more correctly, I should say, then you're going to get a good story. Then you're getting a good story. You're getting people into the. You want people to go, what's going to happen next? I wonder what happened to Jinx. What's going to happen between Mel and Jace? What's going to happen to Victor? If that's how you ace it in the hole, I should say.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so on to Act 3, where Vi and Caitlin are trying to stop a war from happening, but Silco and Jace, in their own respective ways, are trying to get the war started, because Silco ultimately wants independence for the underground to do his own things. And real quick, DJ Ronnie G, welcome, who says, snap, happy belated birthday to Mexican Iron Man. So yeah, happy birthday, Mexican Iron Man. Absolutely.
Oh, snaps. Yeah.
Although I don't think it's your birthday yet, is it? If you're still here, Mexican Iron Man, has your birthday come and gone, or is it still to come? Because I know you had the big event with Loki, where you got that awesome message, by the way, from Kevin Conroy. I just blanked on his name for a second. I know you guys did that, but said that your birthday was still a ways off. So if you could clarify that for us, Mexican Iron Man, I would really appreciate that, if you're still here. So around this time, Vi and Caitlin meet Echo, who has grown up. And by the way, this is Echo nowadays. He's the leader of the Firelights.
Rufio,
Yes.
Man, from Hook. Just kidding. Every time.
I have never seen Hook.
You've never seen.
dude.
You got. I'm
I'll be
sorry.
watching
You gotta add
watching
that.
Hook with you, dude.
You gotta add that to the
Yes.
watch list. Yeah.
All right.
Quite
Yeah,
enjoyable.
you gotta add
All
it.
right, fair enough.
All right, continue.
So yeah, Rufio at first doesn't trust Caitlin. He trusts Vi enough to take her word that Caitlin is okay. So he leads them basically to the Firelight's hideout, where compared to the absolute hellscape that is the rest of the underground, where the Firelights live is completely bright and happy, and there's even a tree growing in the middle of it, and just everyone there is living their best life. And it's really touching, where we see pretty much in the middle of the hideout, they've painted this big mural of everyone that they've lost since Silco took over. And Powder, young Powder, is among those lost. And Echo, yep, this is the big mural. Echo is of the belief that Powder is not coming back. That whoever Jinx is now. Here, I'll use a Star Wars quote from Revenge of the Sith. Yoda says, "The boy you trained, Obi-Wan, gone is he, consumed by Lord Vader." That's basically Powder and Jinx. So, Echo decides to help them get back to the surface. What they don't know is that a blockade has been instituted at the bridge, preventing anyone from the Undercity getting topside. Because, like we said, Jace has pretty much declared war on the Undercity. So they get topside, and Caitlin and Violet try and talk to the police, but Marcus is the one leading the police, and he basically tells Caitlin, you should have listened to me and not gotten involved with this. Now I have to kill you. But before he can, Jinx intervenes, and the whole bridge blows up, and many of the enforcers, including Marcus, are killed, but Vi and Caitlin survive, and they get out of there while Jinx fights Echo. And this is probably my one knock on the animation, because I was confused at first as to what was going on here. Because clearly this was reminiscent of a time when the two of them were play fighting as kids, and they would cut back and forth between the two ages and different animation styles, showing how the two of them would play as kids, both as adults and as kids. But then it switches to the present day, and you see the fight actually happen.
I think I know why.
Why is
Because
that?
in the video games, Echo's ability involves time travel.
Interesting.
So they implemented his ability sort of into the show. And I wonder if that's what Heimerdinger is going to work with him on the whole time travel thing, because that's from the video games. I looked that up too, but I found it. They kind of they show a lot of shots with him and his clock, and I am like, they have to be alluding. They allude a lot to what's in the video games, and I think a lot of that's going to also be in season 2.
I think you're right. So basically, Jinx wins the fight, but Jace survives, as we'll see in a later episode. And Jinx sees Vi once again walking away from her as she's helping Caitlyn get to safety. And this sort of plants it in her mind that maybe Vi has changed too, as again she says later on. However, she gets caught in one of her explosions and is very badly hurt, and Silco finds Jinx and takes her to Dr. Singh to be fixed, which he does using Shimmer. Now, this is another question that I had, because I was not exactly sure what he did to her, because we see her later, she's all better, and literally the only thing different about her is that when she's acting really, really crazy, her eyes glow pink instead of blue. So what exactly did he do to her?
He did sort of like a blood transfusion, but it was Shimmer going into her veins. But yeah, it chemically altered her. It kind of just added more more madness to her mind, basically, because
well, given what we see in the finale, that is 100% believable.
Yeah, and her eyes turn purple, so that kind of shows.
So anyways, after this, Vi and Caitlyn appear before the council, but pretty much get thrown out because they don't believe that Silco is the threat. It's pretty much all of the underworld. And this is where Vi and Caitlyn kind of have a little bit of a falling out, where they realize, you know what? Vi is going to keep going with this, but Caitlyn doesn't see the point anymore. And so they just be like, I don't need you anymore. And they leave. However, later on, we see Caitlyn is in the shower, basically regretting everything that's happened in her life up to this point. And Powder. No. Darn it. Jinx is there. Why did I...
Yeah.
She's there. And that's where that episode ends.
You forgot about Victor and...
Oh, yeah. This whole time, Victor is trying to get the hex core to work. And in one of his coughing fits, where he's coughing up blood, the hex core took in some of his blood. And part of why he went to go to Dr. Singh is to get Shimmer. So he adds Shimmer to the hex core, and it starts getting corrupted. And he tries to use that Shimmer energy on himself, on his leg, and it kind of fixes his leg, but also kind of doesn't, where he's able to use it, but it makes his leg really, really badly shriveled up. Like, it's hard to see from this picture, but his whole left leg is just that purple mess, same as his hand. Oh, go ahead.
And Dr. Singh warned him, people will hate you if you do this.
Yes.
He also, there's also a woman that that likes him, and he just pretty much ignores her
until this moment.
Right.
Until this moment when he's in the middle of using the corrupted hex core. She gets caught up in the energy and is literally turned to dust, which is
Right.
what he's sort of just in that prone position in complete and utter agony and grief. So,
and I think this is Heimerdinger, what Heimerdinger feared, and basically it's coming true.
yes, that magic in the wrong hands is disastrous. But at the same time, given that this is only the first season, we're only just now seeing the full fallout of this. So Vi decides to go and confront Jace directly, basically saying, look, the council may not have voted to do anything, but you and I as a team can. So this is where Jace picks up the giant hammer that he had made earlier. Vi gets the giant boxing gloves, and the two set out to go destroy shimmer factories. And they do. However, at the end of the fight, Jace has second thoughts because, oh, and by the way, hello to Pacific 414.
Yo, dude.
Pacific, go watch Arcane. That's all
Yes.
I need.
Jace gets second thoughts because in the middle of the battle, he accidentally kills a child. And he just cannot bear to have any more child blood on his hands.
This is
So
where
he's
I
like-
think. Oh, sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, you go ahead.
Oh, this is where I think Vi was in the wrong because she wanted to go guns in blazing without thinking about the human, as Picard would say, the human factor.
Yes. Which, again, she may have been wrong, but at the same time, you can't blame her because look at everything that Silco had taken away from her. Naturally, she'd want to go in guns a-blazing. So the two almost come to blows, Silco and Vi, because they're differing viewpoints on this, where she wants to continue this crusade, but he wants nothing further to do with it. The two almost come to blows until cooler heads prevail, and they just go their separate ways. Vi goes back to the last drop, where she gets into a confrontation with Savika, and basically, with the help of the giant boxing gloves, she wins the fight and sends Savika through a jukebox with her mechanical arm gone. Meanwhile, Silco meets up on the surface with Jace, and the two are like, look, neither of us want this war. And if the surface goes to war with the underground, you guys will lose. And this is where Silco names his terms, saying, just leave us alone. Give us our independence. Make us into our own nation. And none of this has to keep going, which Jace very strongly considers. However, Silco sort of actually no, it's just before the Savika versus Vi fight happens that he's sort of musing to himself about all of this, not realizing that Jinx is listening in, because one of the conditions that Jace named is that he wanted Jinx behind bars if there was to be peace at all, because she had to pay for her crimes. And Silco was very strongly considering this, which Jinx felt as being portrayed. So the final shot of the final scene of this show is Vi, Silco, and Caitlyn have all been kidnapped by Jinx, and this mock tea party is set up here, along with the effigies of Milo and Clagger. And by this point, especially thanks to what Dr. Singh had done to Jinx, Jinx is full on insane, like more than she was earlier in the show. And she presents Vi with a choice, basically saying, "You want me to be Powder, but I'm also Jinx. And I have two chairs here, one named Jinx sitting next to Silco, one named Powder sitting next to you. If basically saying, if you want me to be Powder again, you have to let go of Caitlyn." And of course, Vi can't make that choice. But it's around this time that Silco's like, "Look, I'm sorry I lied to you. I truly thought she was dead. But look, I always loved you. I always cared about you. I never would have given them over to you." But his pleas are falling on deaf ears because Jinx is really starting to give in to the madness, and she ends up grabbing up her minigun and shoots and kills Silco, who in his dying breath says, "I truly did love you." And this gives Jinx a weird moment of clarity where she says, "You know what? Screw it all." And she says to Vi, I thought we could be sisters again, but you've changed too. So here's to the new us." So she takes this new weapon that she had created, loads in the hex core that she had stolen, and fires it right at pretty much the main academy building where the council is currently meeting to vote on peace with the underground. And the episode ends with the missile breaking the glass on the council window. And that is how season 1 ends. So I'm gonna kick it off on this one. That ending was something that I didn't know that I wanted to see, because I've said multiple times on this show that I am an absolute shill for a redemption story. I'm the one that wants to see the bad guys turn good and reunite with any family members that they may have wronged. Blame Star Wars for that, honestly. Vader's redemption. And as much as I wanted to see Jinx basically be sisters with Vi again, there was really no way that could happen. And I think that's honestly for the better. And the ending that we got with Jinx literally saying, "Screw it all, screw peace, screw being sisters. I'm just going to set this entire world on fire." I'm not going to say it was good. I'm not going to say it was enjoyable. But I am going to say it was perfect. What do you guys think?
It's perfect.
Yeah,
And it was the perfect ending. Essentially, her name lives up to it. She jinxed the peace. She jinxed everything.
Yep, everything. She doesn't care anymore. She's literally just let the madness take her over, in my opinion.
Yes. So, what do you guys think is going to happen in season 2?
I think Vander's alive.
Yeah, I do too.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because we do see a shot at the very end of Dr. Singh working in his lab, and we see something vaguely humanoid shaped hanging from the ceiling of a very large stature. And I believe that is Vander.
I also believe Heimerdinger's going to help Echo.
Because
Heimerdinger,
even though he's not on the council anymore, he is still in the story. Basically, he's in exile, just kind of wandering the streets, and he finds an injured Echo and decides to help him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that in the immediate aftermath of the council room getting bombed, Jace is going to be the only one that survives.
I think I think a few are going to survive. I don't know if Mel will survive.
I don't think so
I'm
either.
not sure.
I think Victor. I think Jace is gonna find out Victor killed that assistant, and then he's gonna like exile him back to the Undercity.
At which point Victor will turn evil and side fully with Dr. Singh.
Yeah, I think the real villain of this show was Dr. Singh, unintended. I think he was the emperor. He unintentionally, his creations basically were the foundation for the madness that happened in this show.
Yes, because he was the one that created Shimmer, and if he hadn't have done that, Silco would not have had the leverage to take over the underground. Jinx would not have gone crazy.
Right.
And the war with the surface wouldn't have happened. All right, so we talked about the story. Now, let's talk about the characters. And let's start by talking about Jinx / Powder. Now, I was kind of in the boat with you, Cash, where I wasn't the biggest fan of Powder starting out. I thought it was like, you know what, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Omega from Star Wars. But seeing what happened with Powder and how she turned into Jinx, and again, that ending, it was perfect. It was like the perfect descent into madness outside of the Joker himself.
There's so many layers with Jinx. I don't know. I would say Jinx. There's a lot to talk about Jinx. Jinx is basic. I think she's the hero and both the villain of the story. You could argue Vi's the hero of the story, but Vi has her own issues too. And then Jace. Jace was I liked Jace, but I kind of didn't like how he pushed Victor aside
and how he pushed Heimerdinger out of the council.
Yeah, I thought that.
Yeah.
Well, he was manipulated by the council. So.
So yeah, Jinx again, one of if not the best characters on the show as far as just the evolution of the character. And that's saying something because every single one of these characters evolve in some way.
I have really no complaints. Honestly, all the characters. Well, let's think. Vander was cool. No, I didn't. Again, Milo and Clagger were just there.
Yeah, but again, even they served a purpose.
They served. Yeah, they served a purpose. I can't think of any character in the show. Even small characters served a purpose. Oh, this is a show where there is no killer, there is no filler, there is killer. Because everything in the show is connected and evolves, and I'm having a hard time thinking of something I just didn't care for. Even Savika, who reminds me of Gina Carano in a way, she evolves in there's just what was your so Jinx?
So the next character I want to talk about, of course, is her sister, Vi. And even though she doesn't go through as drastic of a character change as Jinx certainly does, but, you know, again, her character evolves too as someone that is tough but also caring toward her family into someone that is still tough and caring, but now she's out for blood. You know, she's out for revenge on Silco for everything that he had taken from her.
And she's developing at first it was a relationship. I think that shower scene with Caitlyn, I think Caitlyn actually likes Vi more than being a friend. Because she kept thinking about her in the shower, and she didn't want her to leave. But even then, Vi's let the revenge get to her, and that's what led to that scene with the kids.
Yes.
But when we get to it, we gotta talk about our favorite fight scenes because there's so many good fight
Oh
scenes.
yeah, we will. That'll be part. I think that'll be part of the animation section.
Okay.
But and something that you mentioned there, the relationship between Vi and Caitlyn, which that'll be the next character we talk about is Caitlyn. Even though I don't believe, being a Christian in same-sex marriage or relationships, they built even that relationship to a point where it makes sense and you do care about them.
Yeah, I don't. I don't. As long as it's built well, then I see no reason. I would just,
Yeah.
if they made it like too obvious and pushed it in your face, then I'll go, oh god.
Like those two old ladies at the end of Rise of Skywalker.
But this
Were
was
old, if I
this
remember.
is where it builds layers. You put layers in, and that's how you do a story. That's how you build a character. Layers, as in the words of Shrek. Be right back.
But at the same time, talking about Caitlyn herself, her motivations, just like every other character, they make sense and they perfectly dictate why she does what she does, because she wants to prove herself as someone that isn't just this little rich girl that can't handle the work of an enforcer, that she can actually get the job done.
Yep, and who knows what's going to happen with her and Jace, and if Jace is hurt, she might go see Jace. Who knows how their relationship is going to get repaired.
Exactly.
I don't know what the show's going to prepare us for, but I'm curious to see how those two relationship is going to continue. Because I do like Caitlyn, and I think it's important, and I was glad to see that this show wasn't going to just leave us out there in the cold. They actually told us about how Caitlyn learned how to shoot, and I think things like that are important because her sharpshooting, her being a sharpshooter, is important to the story because she's quite a good shot.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. And since you brought him up, that's the next character we're going to talk about is Jace. And the best way I can sum up Jace is he is, through somewhat unintentionally on his part, he is a great example of the phrase power corrupts. Yes. Because he starts out as this ambitious scientist that has these plans for Hextech to better the lives of people, but he gets into the council and starts having certain members of the council, especially Mel, in his ear saying, we have our own agendas we want to make sure get done. And he starts prioritizing that to the point that he throws out his mentor from the council and starts ignoring his partner.
Yes. And Mel, I thought Mel was just using him, but actually Mel, it seems she does really care about him. And I found that interesting too in this show.
But here's the thing on Jace. Yes, he's being corrupted by this power and authority that he has, but at the same time, he's not so corrupted that he doesn't feel remorse for what he's doing, because he feels remorse for ousting Heimerdinger. He feels remorse for ignoring Victor to the point that he goes to see him pretty much in a shot that mirrors the one originally, because Victor almost takes a plunge to kill himself also, but Jace stops him. And as Crit said, it's like poetry, it rhymes. And he basically, Victor makes him promise that he will destroy the Hex Core because of what it's doing to him. And Jace does, or he agrees to. So yeah, Jace, as far as character evolution, I would say, is second only to Jinx. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I like his character. I like how they built it up. You still, you're like, well, he's not completely corrupted, or maybe he's not really that corrupted at all. He still cares about people, which is great. So
Right. He's just taking the wrong advice, you could say.
right, I think that's fair. Yeah.
The next character to talk about is Silco. And Silco is clearly framed to be the villain. Even though, yeah, we had our arguments of Jinx was the real villain or Dr. Singed was the real villain, but Silco as being like pretty much the brains behind taking over the underground and turning it into this drug-addled hellscape. Again, good job of making a character like that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, not making him one-dimensional, making him have feelings too, because despite the betrayal, you still got the sense that he deep down still loved Vander. And then at the very end where, yeah, he was just using her as a tool, but still loved Jinx.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still, though, what he did to Vander is messed up, but I don't know. They all had their own problems, but still, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a friend who calls Silco Danger Daddy. I don't know. It's just not going to go. Just like...
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
What are we talking about?
Some of the fan... Well, let's just say, some of the fan theories and headcanons surrounding Silco get a little creepy.
Joko.
Yeah, I just don't know. I just don't. I mean, she really loves that character. I mean, that's great, Silco. But it was just funny when my friend said that she refers to him as Danger Daddy. I says, okay.
What?
It just made me laugh. Yes.
So we were talking about Silco, Crit. So your thoughts on him?
Did we talk about Caitlyn? I missed that.
Yes,
we did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my thoughts on Caitlyn. Again, in the games, they're just friends, Vi and Caitlyn.
I believe they were partners, weren't they? Like partners in crime?
Yeah, partners, basically. Again, this is fiction, so I'm not like gonna put any thought into it, so I'm not gonna be upset. But I don't mind if they're either friends or in their relationship. It's well done. Blah blah blah. Caitlyn is. I like how. Oh, I need to say, this is the only show, one of the few shows I know where they actually give women muscles, and they actually look like women. How surprising is that?
Hey, man.
I mean, Savika looks buff, but she looks like Gina Carano, so I'm not complaining there. Back on Silco, I liked Silco. He had a lot of layers. I don't agree with Seiya. I know you're talking about Seiya.
To use her name.
Say like say
sure.
Say yeah. Say
Well, she's watched the show like 7 times, but that's
yeah. Yeah, I don't know why people. The TikTok crowd loves this show. Maybe for the wrong reasons. I mean, maybe that was the point, but I don't like people saying, "Oh, I love Joko and Silco and Jinx." It's Joko. I'm like, gross.
That is a little creepy, even if they are both. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I don't.
Legal age.
Yeah, I don't think that needs. That's just. It's weird.
So, and then the last character to talk about with you guys is Vander.
I like Vander. Again, Vander really just mirrored Silco with the brother. Basically, Vander's Vi and Silco's Powder. And
yes,
they have 2 opposing goals. Maybe that was just the whole lead up to it. Vander pretty much reminds me of the homeless man from Oliver and Company or Oliver Twist. I didn't read the book, but I know the one. I know the movie with the dogs. So, he cares for Powder. I think he cares for Powder more than Jinx because Powder is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to set an example for Powder or Vi to,
To lead that, to basically be the leader of the house.
yes. And she almost did that, but that's my thoughts on Vander. He's okay.
Okay. Well, that's it on the characters. And moving on now, let's talk about the animation. Now, real quick, Mexican Iron Man, he described this as, he said, please watch as much anime as possible. While that is certainly a good recommendation, this isn't quite anime, because anime is mostly like 2D animation, where this is not. This is more, I would call it gritty Pixar. Wouldn't you say that that's a good comparison?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same animation that you probably see in Dishonored, if you've ever played Dishonored, the game.
I have not.
All right, we'll have to show you. We'll show that to you later.
Okay.
Paul.
So yeah, the animation, it's on the same quality as Pixar, as DreamWorks, but it's grittier. It's not all bright and colorful, at least when it's not supposed to be. And I would say the animation is at its best when it's in those darker, grittier moments, especially when you're seeing Jinx's madness really shine through. When, like I said, all of those random graffiti drawings are flashing on the screen. You see the ghost of Milo at her back with white eyes and like sharp teeth drawn on him. And that's when it's at its best, I think.
Honestly, I thought the animation in this was so great, and this is one of the few shows where every frame is a painting. You take a screenshot from Incredibles, that looks cool, but that's just a screenshot from the Incredibles. If you took a screenshot of Arcane and put it on like an art gallery, you would be able to fool people into thinking that this is actually a art piece, because every frame, as far as I know, this is one of the few. This is one of the few shows. Every frame in this show is so framed, it is thought out.
Do me a favor, Crit. While you're describing that, bring back up. Okay, yeah, that's a good example. I was going to ask for the one where Jinx is holding up the beacon, but this works too. This is exactly what Crit is talking about. You could frame that and hang it on your wall. It is that beautiful. Or that. Like, honestly, what even is there to say about all this? It's just beautiful. That right there, that doesn't even need to be from a show. That truly could go into an art museum.
And this looks like a painting. This looks like a drawing, but it's not. It
looks like the London Bridge.
Like, if you look at like I'm like trying to figure out how they did this, because this looks like it's a painting from this looks like if you played the game Dishonored, this feels like you're playing the game Dishonored, but it's drawn on paper. This is mind-boggling. This is mind-boggling. This is, I have to say it, this is one of the greatest. And just the shots here, like the shots with Heimerdinger talking to Victor. Look at that. That is the frame. It's framed so well. The light. And
this is during the calmer sections of the movie too. And the crazy part is, the animation does not look any less good when the action is really, really ramped up. And I think this is a good time, since you mentioned it earlier, Mr. Crit, to talk about our favorite fight scenes in this show. Mine was Jinx. No, mine was Vi versus Savika in the bar after Vi gets the magical boxing gloves.
Yes. Either that or it's the final fight scene of episode 3 with that whole final climax of episode 3 is insane, with Jinx and Vander basically becoming Hulk. I mean, but let's not forget even though it has a weird song to it, the scene where Vi teams up with Jace, and I kid you not, I did not care for the music at all when his hammer turned into a laser gun. I was like, what?
And they even include, you showed me this, they even include the detail X-ray shots of the people that they're hitting, and you see their bones absolutely shatter.
And it's like a couple frames, but you wouldn't tell unless you paused it. You wouldn't tell. But you could see their skeletons as soon as she punches the living crap out of them. This show is on a whole nother level. I mean, the more we talk about it, the more I just gush about it.
By the way, hello to CLBA78, who says, I've been wondering what Arcane was about, been so into catching up on The Witcher, but now I'm intrigued to watch it. Yes, watch it.
Watch it, man.
Like I said, it's 9 episodes of 1 season so far. You can watch that in, at most, 2 days. So I think now is a good time to get to the next topic, which is the music. And this, unfortunately, is my one major complaint about this show, and ultimately why it's not a 10 out of 10 for me, because the music choices, I understand why they chose to go with the more techno sound, because thematically it fits with the environment that they were creating. But anything that those more techno pop songs like Imagine Dragons was doing, an old school symphony could have done to the same, if not better, results.
Well, we saw that with the love scene that had a orchestra, and then there were a lot I would say this: the score for the show is good, not what Paul is referring to is the montages, because they have some montages where they bring in pop songs. Some songs do work, I will say, like the fight scene in the bar. They use like a country type of music. That was fine. But there are some scenes where it does not work.
The worst of them is when you actually see the members of Imagine Dragons singing the main theme of this song in the middle of the episode. There was no need for this.
And I felt like that was self-indulgence from the creator's part. I mean,
like when an author inserts himself into their writing and stuff, or the book they're working on, the way it is, it's cringe. Yeah.
And I'm not gonna again, I'm still 10 out of 10, but I am gonna throw flack on this show that they are kind of self-indulgent on the whole League thing, because they have Jinx listening to her theme song from the video games in a scene, but that scene is funny and well done compared to the scene where I didn't tell Paul this, I skipped the opening where in episode 6, they have a rap montage introducing Echo. I skipped that because it was really bad.
Wait a minute. You didn't say that you skipped this while we watched it, right?
No.
Okay. CLBA 78. No, it is not the song Believer. That is a good song.
No.
It's something else.
The song with Sting at the end, that is very good. That was that you could tell that was not just a pop song they picked from their pocket. That was a song that they had Sting, and that is Sting from the Police that did that song at the end. That song complemented that whole scene with Jinx about to destroy the council. Where there is a so Echo is introduced in episode 7, but is a horrible rap song, and we see that. Now I'm going to say this: the same episode they do the Jinx versus Echo, and Paul didn't like it, but I'm going to say that scene I'm going to give it a pass, even though it's a rap song, because the animation is actually timed to the music. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that was, first of all, that was clever. And two, the way it's done is interesting. But then again, it's a rap song, so I'm not. But I don't know if they have. There was another song. They had a song that was okay when Vi fought with Jace. I did not care for that song that much, but I didn't care because the fight scene was just interesting and it was getting me pumped up. So,
right. Yeah. So I put in I can't show it on stream. I can't even try and play it or else risk copyright, but I put a link to the song that they used as the theme here in the chat if you guys are curious as to what it is. And here's the thing. Nothing against Imagine Dragons. They are clearly good at what they do, and even some of their songs I actually do like. But this just them inserting themselves into the show was a step too far for me. Like it stopped being a show and it became a music video.
Right. Good point. Yeah.
And that was like after that was after all the. Wait, was that right after the amazing love scene with the animation, and then it goes right into Imagine Dragons, and I was like, oh
no, I think that's during the scene where Caitlyn is trying to help an injured Vi down deeper into the city.
No, that was before. No, it was.
Wait, no, that was during the baptism, I think.
No, it was after the baptism when yeah, so after two good scenes, even though Paul didn't like it, I liked the baptism scene. I thought it was, it wasn't knocking on it. It was the opposite. Basically washing away the past. But again, different perspectives.
Is Arcane League of Legends? It's based off of League of Legends, but as I've already said, you do not have to have played League of Legends to understand this, because if anything, it's an origin story for one of the most popular characters, Jinx.
I hate League of Legends. I love Arcane. I'll just say that. You don't have to play, and this game got Paul to install League of Legends. Of course, he's not interested. So, but he's more interested in
the tutorial.
But he's more interested in season 2. So,
yes.
But yeah, the music choices for some of the scenes, the score itself is pretty fine. Again, the love scene is pure sympathy. Symphony. I know, knock on wood. But yeah. I again, there's some cases where they pretty much they pretty much nail it in the head with the animation or the music, mining the pop songs. So yeah, I can understand why people have qualms with that, especially if they're not a fan. But again, the League of Legends audience, I guess they're trying to cater to. And you don't have to be a League of Legends. I only care for Arcane.
Same.
And our average, a naysayer of this show, he always says it's League of Legends. I don't want to watch it. Well, he only watched the first 20 minutes.
Yes. And CLBA, I know you said you want to watch that. That is our biggest advice. Keep watching past the first couple episodes, even if you think that, I think we're all in agreement here, Cash and Crit, that episodes 1 through 3, this ain't saying much, but they are kind of the weakest of the episodes, right?
I think they are, yeah.
Yeah, until the last half an hour of episode 3.
Right. So trust me, it gets better, way better beyond those episodes, so keep watching. And I think, guys, that is a good place to go ahead and wrap it up. So, conclusion. Let's see. Like I said, me and Crit give this. Me and Cash give this an 8 out of 10. Yes. Crit gives this a 10 out of 10. That should tell you enough that if you haven't seen it, go see it. Final thoughts from you guys?
Give them. This is a show that's quality over quantity. I can't wait for probably another 9 episodes come 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Give them the time. Great show. Again, this is, for me, this is the greatest animated show ever made of recent. I kind of don't know any other animated show that might surpass it.
The only show, animation or not, that I would say I enjoyed more than this, and Cash, you might agree with me on this, is Cobra Kai, because Cobra Kai didn't necessarily have the weak beginning, or the weaker by comparison beginning, that this show had. It grabbed you right off the jump, right?
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't say this has a weak beginning. It's, again,
I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying weaker by comparison to what comes after. Something's got to come in last place.
Yeah. But so yeah, a wonderful, amazing show, and we hope to see more. Riot Games, a video game company doing an animated show, but doing it so well, more than you would expect. That is a plus. That is a huge plus.
Yes. And before we sign off, I'm just going to take a moment and send a quick message. Nintendo, if you're watching this, please do something like this with The Legend of Zelda. I would watch it 5 times. Maybe 6.
Pretty sweet.
They expect you to watch their Chris Pratt.
No,
Mario.
you gotta.
I'm going to watch their Chris Pratt Mario. What are you talking about? I love Chris Pratt.
That has potential.
Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. Get in the barrels, Mario.
Yeah, let's make sure it's not that's what is it, the CGI or whatever version of Zelda they did with their games. Have you seen that?
No.
No, dude, nothing like that, please.
We don't talk about the Philips CDI Zeldas.
All right, so bad.
So we're gonna go ahead and sign it off here. Cash, Crit, as always, anything you guys want to plug for your channels?
I'm taking a content break. I've been pushing myself, but I will be working on stuff in the near future. So,
okay.
I will probably be doing some game reviews, probably some tutorials of something, of like, I don't know, some videos. There'll be some videos because I want my stream to be more than live streams. So gaming streams are a lot of fun, but discussion streams are fun too. But gonna be putting out some videos too. I'm just trying to write up a good script.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's kind of in the same boat that I am too. But anyways, though, as always, guys, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday Night Trek, we will be talking about episodes 11 through 16 of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 2. We've already seen 3 of those episodes, and let's just say, of the 3 that we've seen so far, there's really only one that was kind of fun. The others were just kind of weird.
Yeah, season 2 is almost done. I just want to get to season 3 already.
Me too. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us. So thank you guys for watching this. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to check out our Discord and our merch store. Both of the links are in the description. And just remember, everyone, the Force is family. See you guys later.